Thank you all so much for coming to this live stream tonight. I am so excited to talk to you all about plot grids. I did one of these a couple of weeks ago, and the feedback that I got was that we spent too much time actually brainstorming the idea that we created a plot grid around. This is, something that I love to do. I love brainstorming and doing kind of live brainstorming sessions. So this was definitely something that I wanted to do in the stream, but I absolutely understand that this was not the most exciting part of the stream. So today I have rethought the idea a little bit, and I have a story already fleshed out and ready. And today we are only going to create a plot grid around this story idea. I have all of the different beats mapped out. I have everything ready and prepared. So today I am going to talk you through the idea, and we are going to create a plot grid from scratch together, so I can just kind of show you how I do it and how I like to outline my books. So thank you all so much for coming. I did consider making my own original story for this live stream, but I thought it would be more fun and a little bit easier to just talk about a story that we might all be familiar with and create a plot grid around that. So I I didn't write it. I found an online synopsis of the movie The Lion King online. I absolutely love this movie. I'm very obsessed with this movie. When I was a kid, I used to watch this movie all the time. So I thought that today we could make a plot grid just breaking down The Lion King and converting it into like a plot grid form. So like if you were going to write it as a book, that's what it would look like, or that's what the outline would look like. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming. I see that we have a couple of people who have joined us already. Hi, Cool Gamer. Thanks so much for coming and plot gridding with me this evening. And hi, Marvel Fangirl. I am so glad that you liked plot grids, because that's what we are going to be talking about all of today. So what I think the agenda for this live stream, I'm going to try to keep it a little bit shorter than the live stream that I did last time. Last time, I think it ran just about an hour and a half. And this time, I'm going to try to keep it a little bit more condensed so I don't take up as much of your time. But I think first, I am going to share with you the synopsis that I found and kind of highlighted and broke down of the movie The Lion King. And then we can transition into plot gridding, because I want to see if we can get at least most of the chapters actually in the plot grid. The Lion King is very good because there aren't too many subplots to keep track of, so it's going to be very straightforward how everything fits together. So first, I hope that you're all familiar with the movie The Lion King. For those of you who aren't, The Lion King tells a story of a lion named Simba who goes through basically a big personal journey throughout his life, where he has a lot of internal struggles with himself as he tries to come to terms with his place in the world. And he also has external struggles with, he is the heir to the throne and his uncle really wants to have the throne. And it's a combination of these external and internal struggles. It is a fantastic movie. And yeah, I think let's just dive right into it. Has anybody not watched The Lion King? If you haven't, that's okay. We're going to be, by the end of this video, you are going to know a lot about The Lion King's plot. Big spoiler warning here for The Lion King. So if you haven't seen it, I feel like I can talk about this because it's been out for so long. But if you haven't seen The Lion King and want to see The Lion King and are worried that I might spoil you, this might not be the video for you, because you are going to be so deeply spoiled that, yeah, you're going to be very deeply spoiled. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so you can all see the synopsis that I have of the plot. It might look a little bit overwhelming because I've highlighted a bunch of stuff already. Okay, so this is the synopsis. I pulled this off of, I think, like Lion King Wikipedia, like Lion King Wiki or something. So I did not write this, but I thought that it was the most thorough one that I could find. And I thought that it did a really nice job. So as you can see kind of on the right, I've broken the plot down into scenes, and I've labeled some of the scenes and beats. I added a couple of scenes just because I know the movie so well. I know there were a couple of points that the synopsis didn't go over. So the structure of The Lion King is very straightforward. When I outline my own books, there are always like 5 major plot points that I always start building my outline around. So those major plot points are the point of entry, which is the point at which you get introduced to the story. It is the inciting incident, the point where the conflict or action actually begins. It's the midpoint, which is the point where everything in the story shifts. And it's the climax, which is where the conflict comes to a head, and it's the resolution where things either resolve themselves in some way or resolve themselves in a way that also leaves things open to a sequel. So what I did is that I broke things down into scenes, and my definition of a scene was just what was kind of a scene in the movie. For the most part, most of like toward the end, I left a couple of little cliffhanger bits open and broke the scenes down in the middle of major revelations, just because I thought, like, if we were plot gridding or turning The Lion King into, our fictionalized book that we're writing based off the movie, it would be exciting to like leave some big reveals right at the ends of chapters. But for the most part, by scene here, I just mean like chunk of plot that we can put into a chapter of a book, just because this is already a movie and a story that has been created, and we are like retroactively creating a plot grid around a story that already exists. So I don't know if any of you want to read the Lion King synopsis first. I think that we might just want to jump right into the plot grid, but the essential structure, it's probably easier for me to give you a rough synopsis of the story when I have it in front of me. So the story starts with Simba as a newborn, kind of being introduced to the pride, and then you get quickly introduced to Simba's father's brother, so Simba's uncle, Scar, who's kind of an angry dude, and he wants to take over the throne, and he's very jealous of Mufasa and also of Simba, who's now the heir to the throne. So Scar is secretly plotting ways to take over the throne from his brother Mufasa. And so when Simba is little, Scar introduces him to a bunch of, or like sends him off on this quest to go to this elephant graveyard where these hyenas live, and the hyenas are supposed to try to kill Simba, but then they fail, and then Scar orchestrates this whole big plan to kill both Simba and Mufasa, but he only kills Mufasa, and Simba is able to escape and runs away outside of the Pride Lands. And then after Simba grows up, after Simba survives, he meets a meerkat and a warthog, Timon and Pumbaa, and they help him survive. And then he kind of grows up with these two outside of the pride. And then eventually, he comes to terms with who he is, and he decides that he wants to go back. And it ultimately ends with him challenging Scar and taking his rightful place as King of Pride Rock. So that's the overarching story of The Lion King. So yeah, I think maybe we can just jump right in and create the plot grid. I can keep this kind of synopsis up next to me. You might not be able to see it, but you might not have to see it if we're actually putting everything into a plot grid. So let me share my other screen again. I always feel so weird doing it's such an awkward pause when I try to figure out which tabs to share. Okay. So this is the plot grid that I created for this video. This is the only thing that I have prepared or ready. I just filled in some headers that I put at the top of the grid, and then also the different chapter numbers on the left. So for those of you who don't know what a plot grid is, a plot grid is a method of outlining that is popular with a lot of people who love to plot out their books. It was popularized by J.K. Rowling because she said that this is how she outlined the Harry Potter books. I read about it in an article, and there was kind of like a blurry picture of a outline of the Order of the Phoenix, I think, where she had everything written in grid form, handwritten in a little grid on a piece of paper. I don't do mine on pieces of paper because I like to change things. I have kind of adapted that idea and put it into Google Sheets or sometimes Excel, whatever you want to use. And essentially the idea is that, as you can see, we have different column labels on this top row here. So every single column in your plot grid corresponds to a different part of your story. So for example, this is the plot of your story, this column, you're going to write out every single thing that happens in your story. And then in column E, this is a subplot. So one of the subplots of The Lion King is like Simba's internal conflict and angst that he has about his place in the world. So you're able to like write out all of the different places in the story that he changes or grows in some way, so that you can track how he is in the beginning of the story versus how he is at the end of the story and see the completed arc. So plot grids are a really cool way to outline, because at the end, once you fill out all of these individual columns, you can see your entire story from like a bird's eye view perspective and see how every single part of it broken down into its own individual arc. So if you're worried that like the romance, for example, Simba and Nala's romance isn't fleshed out enough, you can go to that column and just like directly see all of the different times that romance is brought up in the story, and whether all of those scenes together create some kind of arc in their whole, if that makes any sense. Does anybody have any questions about how plot grids work, or do you want me to show you? I can pull up the picture that I saw in the article so you can all see the visual of the plot grid that I was talking about that J.K. Rowling made for Order of the Phoenix, just to give you an idea. Here you go. I love using plot grids to outline my books. This is how I outline all of my books now, just because I like being able to see everything from a bird's eye view perspective. And because I write thrillers, it's really helpful to have columns for like all the different suspects, so you can drop in clues into your book and you don't get overwhelmed by, having multiple suspects and like red herrings and things. Like when I didn't use plot grids, I used to get really overwhelmed because I felt like I couldn't keep track of all of the different plots and things that I had going. So yeah, that is why I use plot grids. That is what a plot grid looks like. Yeah, if anybody has any questions about that, let me know. I'm happy to answer them now. And if not, we can move on and get to fleshing out this plot grid. Okay, so if I don't see any questions, I'm going to go back and share the plot grid screen. Let's see here. I have to like reshare it every single time. Eventually I'll get better at using StreamYard. Okay, cool. So this is our rough plot grid for The Lion King. All I did is I decided things that I really like to always incorporate in my plot grids is my chapter number, because I write books and I like to be able to break things up into chapter numbers. So I always have a column for chapter numbers. I usually have a column for plot points, just so I can like label it. Like if I know the scene is the inciting incident, I can write inciting incident on that part of the plot grid, or if it's the midpoint. So you don't have to have it, but something that you can have if you want it. I also like to incorporate the time. So also because I write thrillers, time is really important to me because of pacing and everything. And I want to make sure that like, if I have 6 scenes that happen on the same day and it's unrealistic, I want to be able to catch that. So I always have time. I like using that one. I always have plot, and plot is probably the most important one. That's your main plot of the particular chapter, the main part of your story that you are going to include in the plot grid. And then these are all subplots. So I always have a separate column for every subplot that I have. So in my story, I have a lot more subplots than this, which is part of the reason that I wanted to use The Lion King as an example, because it has very clearly defined subplots. And there aren't too many that it's overwhelming. So those are the 3 subplots that I isolated. If you have any other subplots that you think are in The Lion King that you want me to include, let me know in the comments, and I'm very happy to add an extra column. But for now, I think that that's what we can go with. Awesome. So I think we should just get started. Another thing, that I like to do that makes plot gridding way easier when you're doing it in Sheets or Excel is to, if you select all of your text and you click up here to the wrap text, just want to make sure, that's highlighted to wrap text. That means that when you type a big chunk of text in here, it's going to be consolidated onto 2 lines like this instead of spreading out down here and getting hidden behind another box. So that's, just another plot grid hack. Okay, so On to chapter 1. So chapter 1 of this particular outline of The Lion King, I said in the synopsis, the first scene is the Circle of Life scene. So the Circle of Life scene is the scene right at the very beginning where they sing, the very, very famous Lion King song, and Rafiki has baby Simba and hoists him up in the air, and all the different animals are like rearing and making noise and getting all excited. So that is plot point of entry, because that's your point of entry is the point at which you enter your story. It doesn't really matter what it is. Every single scene that you have at the beginning of a story is your point of entry. If you are writing this, you want to make sure that you're strategic about what your point of entry is, but we're not writing this story. We are just retroactively fitting it into a plot grid. So the Circle of Life is the point of entry. I'm not exactly sure the time, so I'm going to say like when Simba was a baby. I'll just say baby because it's easiest. So the general plot is Rafiki holds Simba up into the air. Oh yeah, see, this is what rap text does. I just want to make sure it's working. Rafiki holds him up into the air, and all of the animals are happy. The family is happy, singing, yay. Okay, so that's the general plot of the Circle of Life. So Simba doesn't really have a lot of angst yet because he's a baby, and it's like the scene where he's born. So I'm just gonna put nothing there. There's also no Simba and Nala romance. Scar's reign over Pride Rock. Scar has not taken over Pride Rock yet, so Scar also doesn't have any subplot. So none of those matter in the point of entry. Okay, perfect. Moving on. So next scene we have is Mufasa's brother Scar being annoyed that he didn't get, Mufasa being annoyed at his brother Scar for not coming to Simba's ceremony. So Mufasa confronting Scar about not coming to the ceremony shows that Scar is mean and that the brothers have a bad relationship. There's a funny scene a funny moment at the end where Zazu is like telling Mufasa that Scar would make a very handsome throw rug, and that he's kind of not a great guy. So that's already like dropped in very early, and everybody gets to know that Scar is kind of not the greatest. So that is the plot of that time. It's when Simba's still a baby. And it's not the point of entry because the point of entry has already happened. So there's no plot point that needs to be filled in there. And there's also no angst and no romance and no reign over Pride Rock happening yet. So cool. Moving on to the next chapter. So the next scene, I can actually also maybe just cut and paste some of these synopses from this outline into, because so you don't have to watch me type everything. So the next scene that we have, which it would be in chapter 3. Actually, no, that's not going to work. Okay, so Mufasa shows Simba the Pride Lands and tells Simba that this kingdom will be his, and gives him some wisdom. It also sets up their kind of father-son relationship and shows kind of that they are close. It's not like the big scene for their father-son relationship, but it is a scene. So shows the familial bond, which is very important in this movie. Shows familial bond. All right, so this is a different time. So this is like, let's say young Simba. So it's like you fast forward a couple years, or I don't really know the lifespan of lions, but maybe he goes from being like a baby to being a cub that can run around and talk to his dad, kind of like a toddler, I guess, or no, like a young kid. I don't know. He goes to being young and peppy and a troublemaker. So we're going to call that young. This also doesn't have a definitive plot point yet, but I think it does set up Simba's angst about his place in the world. I think that this is the very first scene where we might see some Simba angst at least set up, because Simba's whole internal conflict is that he blames himself. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, but I'm going to assume that all of you have seen the movie or kind of know what it's about. Because Scar, after his father dies, tells Simba that he is to blame for his father's death. Simba does believe that it's his fault because he was a kid, and he feels a lot of guilt between wanting to run away from the guilt that he feels about his father's death and feeling like it's his honor and duty to face it and take the throne and fulfill his destiny. So I think that this really solidify, or like it sets up. Sorry, everybody. I think my dog is crying. I'm going to go and make sure that she's okay, and I'm going to be right back. I know that this is live, but I just want to make sure she's okay because she's been whining for just like a little bit. So I will be right back. Okay, we're all good. She just had to go pee. All right. So, yeah, so this is the first scene, I think, where Simba's angst really gets set up, because he starts to establish that connection that he has with his dad, and that his place in the world gets set up because his dad tells him that his place is like to protect the kingdom and protect the land. So Mufasa tells Simba his role in life and sets up his destiny. Part one, like he further enforces it later on, but this is the part where it's really first set up. Okay, so we have our first subplot. Excellent. We don't really have much. I mean, we haven't even met Nala yet, so none of that, and no Scar's reign over Pride Rock. Moving on to chapter 4. So the next scene that we have is also when Simba is young, and this is when we see Scar again. So Simba goes to Scar, and Scar is pretty sus in this scene. Scar tells Simba that the coolest part of the kingdom is the elephant graveyard, and that's the one place that his father told Simba not to go. But Scar really wants Simba to go there because it's so dangerous, and he wants Simba to die so that he can be the person that will inherit the throne instead of Simba. So Scar tells Simba, because Simba is so adventurous, to go visit the elephant graveyard because it's cool. And Simba, because he's a kid and believes his uncle and has no reason to believe that his uncle would hurt him, decides that this would be the perfect use of his time and wants to go do it. So you don't really get, I mean, we get some of Scar's reign. I guess we can interpret this subplot actually as being kind of Scar plotting to get the throne as well, although that's kind of the main plot of the story, arguably. I think like the deterioration of Pride Rock is more of a subplot, but I'm pretty like Scar's jealousy and wanting to take over the throne is like the main conflict of the story. So we'll save that for the main plot column. Okay, so, and then Simba embarks on a secret mission because Scar is, don't tell your dad, and Simba says, I will not tell my dad. This is the inciting incident. This is when the conflict gets set up, because this is when Scar is actually first plotting to hurt Mufasa and to kill Simba, and this is like the first action that he's taking to do so. So this is what I believe is the inciting incident. Of course, everything is always up for interpretation, and all of the things that I say in this video are just my interpretation of the movie, but I believe that's the inciting incident. All right, perfect. So moving on to scene 5. Oh, okay, scene 5. So scene 5, Simba is still young. Simba goes and convinces Nala, this is a different scene in the movie, Nala to go to the elephant graveyard with him. And Nala agrees. Cool, and now we have another subplot because we finally meet Nala. So this will be the first entry into the Simba and Nala romance category. So we meet Nala, She's Simba's best friend. And the two of them are really super tight and they go on adventures together. Perfect. Awesome. So, next scene. So, also, side note, these are not necessarily like when I was breaking this movie up into scenes, I didn't necessarily like think of because I believe that every single scene has to have like a beginning and middle and end. And when I write my books, I'm very focused and particular about making sure that all of my chapters portray some kind of change. So, like the characters, when they embark it or start the scene, are different at the end of the scene than they were at the beginning of the scene, or else I believe that the scene doesn't have to be there. Either they have to change in some way or reveal a part of themselves or get some sort of crucial piece of information they didn't have before. And I don't think that like in Simba convincing Nala to go to the elephant graveyard with him that he changes in any way. So like I don't believe that this is really a completed scene. So I maybe we can combine it with another scene. I think maybe we don't have this be its own chapter. We can also combine it with them with with Sarabi saying that Zazu has to accompany him. So Zazu is Mufasa's like right-hand man, the person who babysits the cubs and makes sure everything in the kingdom is running smoothly and is just kind of, the person that helps out Mufasa. So Sarabi says that Simba can go, but Zazu has to go with him, which kind of puts a damper on the whole secret adventure thing because now they have a chaperone. So Zazu is told to go with Nala, and Simba have to ditch him. And this is when they sing the whole I just can't wait to be king number because they're trying to ditch Zazu. So they ditch Zazu while singing. And then, and then they ditch Zazu while singing and run off. So one thing that Zazu does say to Nala and Simba, also in this category, is that they are betrothed. He reveals that the two cubs are betrothed to be married. The two of them are like, ew, that's gross. She's just my friend. We're like kids. But that also sets up the potential future romance that is between the two of them when they get older. So Zazu tells them they're betrothed. Yes, Zazu tells them they're betrothed. Perfect. Okay. So, Simba also reveals here, because he has a little bit of he doesn't have as much angst now because he doesn't have any guilt. So in this scene, I forgot to put in that Simba is all proud and tells Scar he can do whatever he wants. In I Just Can't Wait to Be King, or in I Just Can't Wait to Be King, he is really cocky and proud of being king one day. No angst. Cool. All right, so moving on to the next chapter that we have. So Simba and Nala enter the elephant graveyard. This is also when they're still young. Simba and Nala enter graveyard, and something goes terribly wrong. They meet hyenas, Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed, who tried to kill them. And they are rescued at the last minute by Mufasa, who is furious with Simba. Very, very mad. Because he told Simba not to go to the elephant graveyard, and Simba went anyway. So he's very, very mad. So Simba doesn't really have any angst yet because he doesn't get his stern talking to until the next scene. The scene is basically just them running for their lives, and they get saved. They also, there isn't a lot of romance here. It's like mostly best friend stuff that happens. So we don't have to put anything in that column. Scar is also not reigning over Pride Rock yet. nothing in that column. This is not any plot point necessarily of the 5 that we outlined. If when you outline, you like to incorporate more plot points than just the 5, which I also do when I'm writing my books, but just to make sure that everything is very simple for the sake of this video so you get an idea as to what a plot grid is, I just wanted to limit it to some degree. I want to see if maybe I can zoom in on this a little bit just to make it easier for everybody to see. I think that might be a little better. Yeah. So that's not one of the 5 plot points that we identified. Don't need to put that in. Moving on to the next chapter. So what happens next is Mufasa tells Simba that he's disappointed and tells Simba about his ancestors in the stars looking down on him and his destiny. So this is like a big moment between the father and son. Their bond is really solidified and established here because Mufasa, is telling Simba that he has a great destiny and that he has a place and that this is his role in the world and he can't just go and, be silly and get himself killed and do irresponsible things. And this is when Simba really starts to understand the gravity of being king and the responsibility that comes with that. So Simba understands responsibility. This is the column of Simba's angst, column E. There's no romance that happens here because Zazu quickly takes Nala home and Scar is not raining, Scar's not raining over Pride Rock, so nothing in that column either. Simba is still young, so that is the time. Also not like one of the 5 plot points that we need to pay attention to, so not going to put that in. All right, moving on. I'm going to try to go fairly quickly just so this video isn't crazy long, but you still get an idea of how to create a plot grid. So next scene is... Oh, also forgot to mention that, Mufasa forgives Simba and it brings them closer, this conversation that they have. Okay, next scene is Scar in the graveyard is yelling or mad at the hyenas for not succeeding in their job of killing. He's not yelling, but he's mad at the hyenas for not succeeding in their job of killing Simba. And he hatches his plan to kill both Simba and Mufasa in the stampede. So hatches plan with hyenas to kill Simba and Mufasa in stampede and take over the throne. He's super jealous, super power hungry, a total absolute murderous jerk. Okay, so that is also when Simba is young, although Simba is not in this scene. S not in scene, even though he's the main character, which you couldn't do if you were writing this book from the first person point of view from Simba's point of view, because he wouldn't be in the scene, so you wouldn't have access to this information, but you could do it if you were writing in third person. Is there anything else we need to put in? Scar's reign over Pride Rock. He's not actually reigning yet, but he does hatch his plan. It is a big plot point. There's no angst because Simba is not in the scene. Okay, moving on. Oh, they sing a fabulous song called Be Prepared at this point in the story, but we don't have a column for songs, so moving on. The next scene that we have is the stampede scene. So Scar brings Simba into the gorge for the stampede scene. Stampede happens. Can't type and talk at the same time. Stampede happens. The hyenas chase all of these, chase all the wildebeests into the gorge, and then there's a huge stampede. Simba is caught in it. Zazu goes and tells Mufasa about it. Mufasa goes and rescues Simba. In the process, he falls into the stampede. He's able to climb onto the side of the gorge, but Scar is up there and he grabs hold of Mufasa and pushes him off, so Mufasa falls into the stampede and dies. Very sad. Cried a lot when I was little. Cried now, even. I always cry when I watch that scene. It's very sad. But Mufasa dies during the stampede. So this is a huge plot point. This is also why... spoilers for The Lion King. all of you who did not heed my earlier spoiler warning. So you brought this upon yourself. Mufasa dies, and it's very sad. Simba doesn't see, this is important, doesn't see Scar kill Mufasa. He just sees Mufasa fall. So if I were writing this as a book, I would end the chapter there with like Simba seeing Mufasa fall, and then in the next scene, I'd go in and show Simba's reactions to it. So that's what I'm going to do here. So plot point is still young, not a lot of angst. Well, actually, big plot point in here. Mufasa dies, which changes everything. This is the point that changes the story. There's no romance. Scar has not taken over Pride Rock yet, so no subplot there. Cutting off the chapter, though, and in this new chapter, Simba cries over Mufasa. Scar comes in and tells Simba that it is his fault. No, not that. That was misleading. Simba's fault that Mufasa died and that he needs to run away. Off screen, this is another thing that we couldn't do if it was from Simba's point of view. Off screen, we see Scar tells the hyenas to kill Simba before he can get away. The hyenas end up chasing Simba all throughout these rock formations, and then Simba is able to get away by like jumping into all these cacti or like really spiky plants and burrowing around them and running around them and escaping that way, because the hyenas can't follow him in because they're too big. And then they just say like, oh, he's as good as dead anyway, because on the other side of the spiky plants is just desert as far as you can see. So the hyenas don't actually kill him, but they like say, oh, he's good as dead anyway. Like, and if he ever comes back, we'll kill him. And then it's over. And then the scene is over. So hyenas chase him off, but he escapes through spiky plants. Okay. Another huge scene. This is another huge scene for Simba's angst, because this is the scene that defines Simba's entire internal conflict, because he believes that he is to blame for his father's death because Scar told him that he was. So internal conflict established. Simba is to blame for, or believes he is to blame for Mufasa's death, and he feels so guilty about it. Okay, so yeah, no romance here. And here, this is actually a plot point that affects this, because with Mufasa dead and Simba gone, Scar is the heir, and he's got the claim to the throne. So he hasn't taken over yet, but he has with the other two out of the way, he can get the throne. So Simba is still young here. This is also, I think, we're almost at the midpoint. This isn't exactly the midpoint, I think. I mean, I've read articles while I was creating this plot grid in preparation for making this video. I did a couple of Google searches and just wanted to see what if there were other people who had written about the plot structure of The Lion King and what they believed the midpoint was and other different plot points. And I found a couple of conflicting opinions as to what the midpoint is in this story, because there were a lot of points of change, but I strongly believe that the midpoint is the point where Scar actually takes over the throne, and then it also jumps forward in time because Simba is older. There's half of the movie where he's younger and half of the movie where he's older. To me, that is definitely the midpoint. But and it's also, I did the math, because the point where Scar ascends the throne is almost exactly at the halfway point of the movie, which is where the midpoint's supposed to be. So I think that that's the midpoint, but some people disagree. All right, so next scene we have is that night Actually, I don't remember if we'll say this is all in one chapter because I'm not exactly sure if this scene happens before or after the scene where Scar takes over the throne. But the following sequence shows Rafiki like mourning Simba's death and being really sad about it, and also Scar taking over the throne. So we'll just like combine those things. I don't remember which order it's shown in the movie. So Scar takes over the throne, gives hyenas full reign of Pride Lands. Rafiki mourns Simba and Mufasa's death. The lionesses are really sad. This is sad, very sad. And Simba is still young, even though he's not in this scene. That's not in the scene. This finally, we get some Scar reign over Pride Rock content. So Scar officially takes over Pride Rock and gives hyenas full reign or full ability to hunt. Scar is still the boss, but the hyenas were hungry in the elephant graveyard, and now they're given full permission to go out and hunt things. So, no romance here. Oh, we do see a very short clip of Nala being sad over Simba's death. So that happens. It's not like romantic, but now Nala believes that Simba died. Okay, so this, I believe, is the midpoint, as I talked about before, since it's directly halfway through the story. And now we kind of get a bit of a tone shift. We have Simba has like another scene where he's still young, but then we're also going to get a jump forward in time. So after this, Simba is unconscious in the desert. He meets Timon and Pumbaa, the meerkat and the warthog that are very famous for singing Hakuna Matata, and they kind of take Simba under their wing. And at first they're like, oh my God, it's a lion, he's going to eat us. But then they also realize, oh, maybe when he's older, he can protect us. He can be our friend. So they take him under his wing. They kind of help him survive. They teach him that, he can eat bugs, which, not sure if a lion could mature in a completely healthy way just on a diet of grubs alone, but that is what it does, or what happens in the movie. So meets Timon and Pumbaa. They take him under their wing and teach him Hakuna Matata, their whole anthem of no worries and no responsibilities. So this is another huge part into playing into Simba's internal conflict. So now we have another entry into this subplot column here. So Simba now has two things to wrestle with. He has to wrestle with his responsibility that he feels to what his father told him and his place in life that he was, brought up believing that he had. And this new mantra of, I, feel really guilty that I did this horrible thing, but this new no worries attitude gives me an out and a way to not carry that guilt around with me. So Simba is introduced to the no worries mentality that counters, I don't want to say like duels, but that fights against his response or feeling of responsibility in the story. All right, cool. So no romance. We don't get a firsthand look at Scar's rule or anything happening in the Pride Lands during this time. So we don't have to put anything in that column. So now we have an age shift here. So we go from young to adult, because over the course of Hakuna Matata, there's a great little montage where they're all like walking along this log, like Timon, Pumbaa, and Simba, and you can like see Simba go from like cub to teenager to adult, and it changes over the course of the song, and then he like starts the song as a cub and ends the song as an adult. So by the end of the song, he is an adult. I'm gonna drink some water because I've been talking for so long. Okay, so yeah, now we are officially in the second half of the movie. So if we were thinking about this book, this actual movie in terms of acts, I would say like act 1 is pre-midpoint, like everything up until this point, and act 2 is when Simba is an adult in the second half of the story. So we get now our first main plot point in the second half. So this is actually, it shows how horrible Scar is as a ruler. So Scar is awful as a king, treats Zazu poorly, has mismanaged everything, so there is no food left. He's been like telling the lionesses that they have to go hunt. He has been telling the hyenas that they can eat anything that they want, and everything has been crazy overhunted, and all of the herds have migrated away from Pride Rock. So nothing is in balance. Everything is horrible. Everyone is starving, but Scar refuses to leave Pride Rock. So you get a glimpse into what that is like, and the main plot point that like drives the plot forward is that this is actually a deleted scene, I think, in The Lion King. I'm not sure if Nala is told in the movie itself, or if I'm confusing the movie and the Broadway show, that she has to go leave the Pride Lands to go hunt and find help, or if she sneaks away to go hunt and find help. I know that in the movie she does tell Simba that she came to find help and that she found him, and he is their only hope for salvaging themselves. But I know that in the deleted scenes, Scar, I think, is trying to get Nala to become his bride, like Sarabi was Mufasa's bride. And like, but I don't remember if he was telling her that he had to go hunt elsewhere. I don't think that he would do that because he's too proud. So I'm pretty sure she snuck out to go find help and left. So that's not the part that actually doesn't move the plot forward in the movie, if I'm remembering correctly. But if anyone watching remembers this better than me, let me know. But yeah, everyone is miserable. Even the hyenas are like, this didn't happen under Mufasa. At least we had something to eat. And you can kind of see Scar's mental unraveling because he's just so self-conscious and jealous of being compared to Mufasa. So Scar is totally off the rails and unstable, and also even the hyenas are starting to turn against him, kind of. More on that later. Okay, so Simba's still an adult, even though it's not in scene, because this is a Pride Rock scene. Cool, so the next scene after that is between Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa. So Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa are all like laying under the stars, and they're like looking at the stars, and they have this like fun conversation about what they believe the stars are. And I think it's a really funny moment because Pumbaa is always made out to be the one who's kind of dumb, but Pumbaa is also the one that actually drops the truth bombs a lot in this movie, and Timon thinks that he's so much smarter than Pumbaa, but he's the one that's wrong. Like Pumbaa is like talking about how they're, I always thought they were balls of gas hurtling millions of miles away, and like Timon thinks that they're just like fireflies stuck on the big bluish black thing. And they have that little exchange, but the point of that exchange and them talking about the stars is because Simba had that entire conversation with his father about the stars earlier on in the movie, and that's when his connection to his destiny and to his ancestors and to the throne really gets established. So that's why the scene is important, and it brings out a lot of angst for Simba. So Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa talk about the stars. It literally, like, the scene ends with Simba just kind of like slumping down on, the mountain, and is all like, oh, because he's sad about it. And then, other stuff happens. Oh, we got some comments. Let's see. Oh, Shannon said, in the live action movie, Nala tells Sarabi she's going to find help after Sarabi refuses to leave Pride Rock. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I only watched the live action movie once. because I am a loyalist to the cartoon because it's what I grew up watching. But yeah, because I know that that's the point that happens because that's what happens in the Broadway show too. And I have a toddler and we watch this movie daily. Yeah, I made my mom watch it every single day as well, and my dad. They had to go through this movie very, very many times. I still watched it like every couple of weeks, all the way, until I went to college. I just like love this movie. It's such a comfort movie for me. Okay, so Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa talk about the stars. Simba remembers his responsibility to his destiny. I'm gonna also add. There's no food left. What was it that? Yeah. So Nala tells Sarabi she's going to go find help. Nala tells Sarabi she's going to go find help. She leaves Pride Rock, and that's what moves the plot forward. This also actually would probably merit an entry into the Simba and Nala romance category because this is also something that plays into their romance, is the fact that she leaves. So Nala leaves Pride Rock to go find help. So Simba and Timon and Pumbaa talk about stars. Lots of angst. Simba is confronted with guilt about his father, is really torn up about it because he still believes that he's to blame, and that even though, he might have, so that he still believes that he is to blame. All right, so he is an adult. I remember that him slumping on the grass, I think like it billows up like the leaves or something, and then it travels across the prairie over to where Rafiki is, and then Rafiki like mixes things in a bowl and realizes that Simba is alive. So I don't know if that's I honestly think that that's part of this scene as well. So like Rafiki realizes Simba is alive. I don't think that merits its own chapter, but it is a cool scene. All right, so the next scene is when Nala arrives and tries to hunt Pumbaa because, she thinks that he's food. So Nala tries to hunt Pumbaa and Simba saves him. This is a huge scene. Simba saves him. He and Nala fight. Nala is about to win, and she like pins him down on the ground, just like she did when they were sparring when they were kids. And then that's the moment where he recognizes that it's her. So Nala and Simba have their big reunion. I think that if I were writing this as a book, I would probably have it so it's like, right at the end of the chapter, if it's like from Simba's point of view, like they're fighting and then she's got her pinned down and then he sees her eyes and like has all these memories and stuff, and like right at like the last pinch thing at the end of the chapter is like Nala, and then chapter ends and then we move on to next chapter. So like let's just say Simba recognizes, we're taking some creative liberties in this. Simba recognizes Nala during fight. We get some Simba Nala romance subplot here because what is this, a glitch in? Oh, this is weird. I don't know what's happening. Whoa. Okay. I don't know what that's doing, but okay. Recognizes Nala during the fight. Nala and Simba recognize each other. Not a lot of angst here because he's trying to save Pumbaa. Okay, we got a question. Korean Lover for Life said, how do you edit a cell without deleting all the information inside the cell? I've been having trouble trying to edit cells that already have text in them. Are you using Google Sheets? Because what I use with Google Sheets, I just double click it. If you double click it, you will see like the little bar come up. You see, I don't know if you can see it on my screen. There's like a flashing, like the typing symbol, like the little bar that flashes as you're typing. If you just click on the cell and start typing, you'll delete everything that you had before. But if you double click it, it should let you type and edit your text. But let me know if you still have issues. Because you want to make sure that you're not constantly deleting what you've already written. All right, so Simba recognizes Nala. Moving into the next scene, how we're getting into like the exciting part of the story really soon. I mean, it's all exciting, but this is we're starting to get close-ish to the climax. Okay, so Simba and Nala have their big reunion, and then they sing their big song, the "Can You Feel the Love Tonight?" And they start to fall in love. Simba shows Nala around his home, and everything is super romantic. I think that this would probably be its own scene because they start with them like being like, oh my god, you know, you're here, you were my best friend, and then by the end they're kind of falling in love, so that's a change. So I think that that merits its own scene. Obviously this is a really big scene for the Simba and Nala romance subplot column, so they get reunited and start to fall in love. Obviously if you were writing like a romance book, there would be a lot more little steps in their whole in like, you know, start to fall in love, you know, you'd break that down a lot more. But since this is not a romance movie, we can just kind of have a scene for them starting to fall in love. So we don't really have any angst yet. That's coming up, I think, in the next scene. We also don't have any Scar reign over Pride Rock because that's also coming in the next scene by like what Nala tells Simba about it. So I think we're good for now. Moving on to the next scene. So Simba is still an adult. He will be an adult for the remainder of the movie. So in this scene, after they've kind of fallen in love, Nala tells Simba that he has to return with her to Pride Rock because like he's alive and the throne is his and he can take over from Scar because Scar has been making everything horrible. And Simba does not want to, and they get into a huge fight. And Simba is like, "It's Hakuna Matata. It's not my responsibility." Or you know, it's sometimes bad things happen, and there's nothing you can do about it. And Nala's like, "But there is something you can do about it. This horrible thing is happening, and you are the one that can do something about it." And they have a huge fight, and Simba storms off, and Nala is super mad. Or maybe, yeah, I'm pretty sure Simba is the one who storms off to come home and fight Scar. Simba says no, Hakuna Matata, not his responsibility, and she gets mad, rightfully so. So another big scene for Simba's angst. He has to essentially, like in this moment, he weighs his responsibility versus his Hakuna Matata mindset, and he chooses the Hakuna Matata mindset, and then things in the story go wrong. So this is kind of when he like makes the wrong choice in the world of the story, because like the major thematic question of the story, I guess, I mean, it's I don't exactly know how to phrase it because I'm just like thinking about this off the top of my head, but it's like, you know, it's the battle between responsibility and like honor and you know, self-interest and not facing the bad things that happen to you. And like in the world of the story, the right thing to do is to face things and to show up and, you know, to take your rightful place as king. So when he doesn't choose that in the realm of the story, the things in the story start to go wrong, if that makes sense. So this is like where he makes the wrong choice, and then the events of the story kind of have to put him back on the right track. So he makes the wrong choice, and him and Nala get into the big fight. So this is also a big fight in their romantic subplot. So we'll say like they get into a huge fight over values. It's also a big angst chapter for Simba because Simba chooses Hakuna Matata over his responsibility to the throne and to his family. He is also, you know, dealing with a lot of guilt because he believes that it's his fault that his father died. And then we also get this subplot, the Scar's reign over Pride Rock. We get to see a glimpse into that because Nala, because Nala tells Simba that everything at Pride Rock is horrible. Okay, moving on to the next scene. Oh, we got a question Paul asked how to go from the plot grid to the actual scene plan. Would you switch to index cards and plot the scenes on them, setting conflict, goal, outcome, and weave together the subplots in that process? I think that what I would do, I don't do scene plans when I write. I think what I do is that I just get really detailed in my plot grid. So like in this, obviously like for this video, these scene descriptions are pretty simplistic, but in my own personal plot grids for my books, I sometimes have paragraphs in these cells, and then that's where I like set up like, okay, this is where the scene takes place. This is, the conflict, this is the goal, and this is the outcome, and this is how the scene changes. And I make sure to write all of that in the cell so that I can keep everything in the same place. I don't personally use index cards. It's just easier for me to be able to consolidate everything here. But I think that if you wanted to make scene plans, I think that you would maybe want to start with big picture, kind of like a couple of notes, and then you can elaborate on it after if you wanted to transfer it to index cards. But also if you write stuff in the cells and then transfer it to index cards and then you update your plot grid, it might get messy. So I would probably recommend just trying to be really detailed and writing out what you would write on the index cards in the actual descriptions of the scenes. Yeah. Okay, so let's move to the next chapter, which is honestly, I mean, it's not really the climax yet, but this is like the biggest, like it's kind of the thematic climax of the story, because it's like the scene that causes Simba to decide to go home and confront Scar and seize his destiny. So the next scene we have Simba is an adult, number is 18. Call this the thematic climax. This is like the soft climax. Usually you want to try to entwine your climax with your thematic climax. And I think like you do in some way, I mean, you do in The Lion King, but this is the scene that kind of helps that along. It's like an extension of that, because he actually has to have another kind of meeting with the mentor to make that choice. I'm not going to call it that. I'm not going to call it thematic climax, but it's a big scene. So Simba is pouting, and Rafiki comes in and doesn't reveal who he is, because Simba doesn't know who he is or remember him from when he was like a baby. And Rafiki comes in and pretends to be just this like random person who's making jokes and being distracting and making fun of Simba, and he's getting Simba really annoyed. And then all of a sudden he comes in and he's like, I know who you are. And he's like, no, you don't. And he's like, yes, I do. You're Mufasa's boy. And then he runs off, and Simba's like, wait, how did you know that? So he chases Rafiki, and Rafiki leads him to this kind of like pool of water. And when Simba Rafiki tells Simba that he will take Simba to his father, because his father is alive. And Simba's like, no, he's not alive. I know he's not alive. And Rafiki's like, yeah, he's alive. And then he takes Simba to this pool of water, and Simba goes to this pool of water and is like looking down, because Rafiki's like, look down into the water, you'll see him. Simba looks down into the water and only sees his reflection. And he's like, that's not my father. You lied to me. And Rafiki's like, no, that is your father, because he lives in you. And then, his father comes up into the sky, and he has this conversation with his father. And his father's like, I'm so disappointed in you. You need to remember who you are. This is not who you are. You're running from your responsibilities. And, it's like this really big climactic scene where he actually talks to his father, and the whole ancestors in the sky comes back. And it's a very, very emotional scene. So to summarize, Simba's body, Rafiki comes in, takes him to Mufasa. The whole remember who you are, you are my son, the one true king, all of that stuff. And Simba just feels so bad, because he's like, Father, I'm sorry. And it's like all this stuff comes pouring out of him, all of the angst. And Mufasa tells drops some truth bombs. Simba has to confront his past that he's been running from. So lots of angst here, because Simba talks to his father, in the sky, like where his ancestors are, and kind of gets reconnected to who he is and his past and his future and everything. So this is where Simba decides to go home and confront Scar and take back the throne. So this is like Simba's seize the day moment. Simba decides to go back to Pride Rock. So big Simba angst, big plot moment. There's no romance. There's no Scar taking over the throne. In the next scene is, I think, when Nala comes looking for Simba, and she like asks Timon and Pumbaa where he is, and nobody knows where he is. And then all of a sudden, Rafiki is like, "You're not gonna find him here. He went home, and like the king has returned." And it's, you know, all exciting. And then they go and chase after him. And then you get the montage of like Simba running through the desert while the dramatic music plays on his like way back to Pride Rock. So this is not like a complete scene. This is just like a little nugget of information. Like nothing changes in this scene, like of, you know, Nala looking for Simba and learning that he's gone back, and then they also go. So I think that this can probably be incorporated into the next scene. So we'll just kind of make it one giant scene. So, I mean, it's not like a super important scene. We might not even have to put it in the plot grid because it doesn't really advance the plot, but that happens there. And they just like go and follow him, and you get the montage of Simba going home. So Simba goes home. Everyone learns about it. He goes back to Pride Rock and sees that Nala was right, and everything is horrible, and like all the plants are dying, all the animals are gone, the hyenas have taken everything over. Everybody is really horrified, and this is where the climax of this story starts. So we can put climax beginning. This whole next section is the climax. This is just like where it starts. Let's see. Yeah, so everything is horrible. Nala and Timon and Pumbaa catch up to Simba, and they all make a plan for how they're going to confront Scar. And then they like creep up Pride Rock, and they see Scar yell for Sarabi, and Sarabi comes forward, and Simba is horrified because Scar like hits Sarabi, and then he jumps out, and Scar is like, "Oh my god, it's Mufasa, like I thought that you were dead." And then he realizes that it's not Mufasa and that it's Simba, and then the action kind of starts to happen. And then this is kind of where the climax happens, because he starts to confront Scar. So, you also get the really funny little montage of like Timon and Pumbaa trying to distract everybody. Wow. I'm just realizing that like the time that I'm taking to walk everybody, like the time that we're taking to create this plot grid is going to be approximately the length of the movie. So you should all go watch it. I'm pretty sure it's like an hour and 20 minutes or something. So we're probably going to be right on the money for how long this live stream is. But anyway, and they all make plan for how they're going to confront Scar, and then Simba starts confronting Scar, and it looks like he might actually win because he's like kind of pushing Scar down, like, you know, off the edge of Pride Rock at the beginning, I think. And then the power balance shifts because Scar is starting to tell Simba, like, why don't you tell everybody who is responsible for Mufasa's death? So Scar makes Simba confess to killing Mufasa, and then Scar is about to kill Simba and throw him off the end of Pride Rock. And right as he's about to do it, because he's got Simba hanging off the end of Pride Rock, and like his claws are in Simba's paws, and he like is like, oh, this sight is familiar. And right as he's about to push Simba off the end of Pride Rock, he whispers in Simba's ear that he was really the one who killed Mufasa. Scar was the one who killed Mufasa, not Simba. And this makes Simba so angry that he throws himself back onto Pride Rock and forces Scar to confess that to everybody. So Scar makes Simba confess to killing Mufasa, almost kills Simba. Right at the end, Scar confesses to killing Mufasa, or right before he's about to kill Simba. Scar confesses to killing Mufasa, and this is an emotional moment because he's like, Simba has to he tells everybody, including his mother, that he was the one who killed Mufasa, or he's the one who's responsible for Mufasa's death. And Sarabi's like, it's not true. Please tell me it isn't true. And Simba actually has to face that, and he has to confess what he's been trying to run from his entire life since it happened. So Simba has to confess that he's responsible for Mufasa's death. And he's like, it's an accident. And Scar is like, well, and then it's a big dramatic moment. We never mean for accidents to happen and all this stuff, but that doesn't mean that it's not your fault. So he has his like emotional thematic climax where he has to face that he did that and actually tell the people that he's been like feeling so guilty and trying to run from. So Simba has to confess that he's responsible for Mufasa's death, but he learns that Scar is really the one responsible, so he doesn't need to carry that guilt around anymore. So Nala shows up for Simba, but at this point they're like kind of in love. They just like had a fight, so there's not like a lot of romance that happens there. We also get to see, or Simba gets to see, firsthand how bad Pride Rock is. So we get like another glimpse into Scar's reign. We also get a glimpse into his reign because he's really horrible to Sarabi, and he hits Sarabi, and that's really emotional. So Scar is just kind of a terrible lion. All right, so climax continued. Adult. It's so funny. Like even talking about this movie, like I can hear their voices in my head. Like I've seen this movie so many times. It's just so clear to me. So Simba launches back on and he's like, murderer, and he's like pinning Scar down, and he was like, tell them the truth. And Scar doesn't want to tell them the truth that he was the one who killed Mufasa, but Simba's like choking him, and he's like, through the choke, he's like, I killed Mufasa, and then this huge fight breaks out. So this is like the main climax of the movie. So Scar confesses to everyone that he killed Mufasa. So this is another big moment for Simba's ankle. It's just kind of continuing that he realizes that Scar is the one who's really responsible. Scar confesses to everyone to kill Mufasa. Huge fight breaks out between lions and hyenas / Scar. So we get a lot of fighting between Scar and Simba in this. It's kind of like the big showdown between Scar and Simba. We get a moment, I think, when Simba and Scar are sparring. Simba is about to kill Scar or something. Simba is about to kill Scar, and he tells Scar that he needs to run away, exactly like Scar told Simba that he needed to run away when he was a cub. And then in that moment, Scar blames the hyenas for killing, or for wanting to kill Mufasa, and like puts all of the blame on them, and the hyenas overhear him, which plays into his eventual death. And so they continue fighting. It's like just showdown. I'm not going to type all of the details out, but showdown between Simba and Scar. Scar blames hyenas, and eventually Simba pushes Scar off like ledge that they were, or off Pride Rock, I'll just say. And then the hyenas maul Scar to his end, because there's this like great moment where, I don't know why my Google Sheets keeps glitching. There's a great moment where Scar falls off, and then all the hyenas kind of start circling around him, and he was like, oh, my friends. And the hyenas are like, friends, I thought you said that we were the enemies. You just blamed everything on us. And then they're the ones that eventually cause Scar's downfall, and not Simba, and he's not the one who eventually kills Scar. So that is the main climax. Simba is able to defeat Scar. So Simba wins this battle. And yeah, I think yeah, we don't have a lot of subplots going on here because it's the main climactic battle. We get a lot of main plot. And so now the climax over, we have our final scene, which is the resolution. Simba is still an adult, and it's the aftermath of the battle, and Simba claims the throne. He claims a throne that he was always meant to claim. He seizes his destiny that he's been running from. He reunites with his family, and it's just this glorious moment where he's walking up Pride Rock in the rain, and everything is fantastic, and everything is happy, and it's a happy ending. And then we see all of the life return to Pride Rock. The life returns to Pride Rock, happy ending, because he was able to, seize the day and defeat Scar. We get some Nala love interest action because Nala, is like takes the throne as the queen, and she's takes the throne with Simba, and the two of them are like the new Mufasa and Sarabi from the beginning of the movie. And Scar dies, so this was the previous chapter. So he's no longer ruler. And yeah, that's the ending of the story. It's a happy ending, and Simba is like able to kind of come out on the right side of the theme because he made the right thematic choice. And yeah, that's the entire plot of The Lion King. So now I'm going to zoom out for you so you can kind of see this plot grid. I can like really zoom out so you can see the whole thing in its entirety, kind of. So you see how I know you probably can't read any of this, neither can I. But every single column that we have here has some text in it. So let's say, I'll zoom in just a tiny bit more than this. Let's say that we were going and revising. I know that this is obviously a finished story, but let's say that this was our story and we wanted to go and revise it. And maybe we felt that in our draft, Simba's internal conflict was lacking in some areas and didn't feel fully fleshed out. We would be able to go and only focus on this column, and we can see the entire arc of this one subplot. So, every single subplot, in my opinion, I like to make sure that all of my subplots have arcs, just like my story. So every single subplot has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And there is a change that happens. So it's not just one thing is peppered in throughout the entire book. If it's a character's internal struggle and if that's a part of the story, or if it's a romantic subplot, I like the characters to begin in one place and for them to end in one place so that they go on a journey, because I think that it's way more satisfying for readers at the end of the story to have seen some kind of change. So plot grids make it really easy to revise your subplots because you can see every single point in the subplot over the course of the story. And then if you were going to revise it, you can see what is missing. So here we can see that at the beginning of the story, Simba is all proud and cocky that he's going to be king one day. And then, Simba learns his responsibility. And then, he learns then about Hakuna Matata. And then that kind of conflict becomes established. And then, he's really torn up about the guilt of his father. And then he chooses Hakuna Matata over his responsibility to the throne and to his family during that big fight with Nala. So then that's a point of change, and kind of the one of the climaxes, that kind of sequence is the climax of the subplot is him choosing the Hakuna Matata and then talking to his father when Rafiki leads him to his father, and learning the whole your father lives in you and you carry on that legacy, and you are your father in some ways, and you're connected. So he's not really gone because he's still with you. So he gets that moment, and then he's able to make the choice that he wants to go seize his destiny. So you can see that all just compiled in this one column, which makes it really easy to revise. Because what I like to do after I write a first draft, what I usually do in my process is that I go back and I retroactively create a plot grid like we just did in this video of my first draft. And then I can really examine okay, this subplot, I mentioned two things at the beginning of the book, but then it's completely blank for the rest of the book. So either I need to get rid of that subplot or I need to flesh it out in some way. And then I like to color code it so I can like change my text color. And like, let's say, I don't know, I wanted to add a scene in here where like Simba is kind of rude to his dad. I mean, he kind of is by going to the elephant graveyard, but like, let's just say I wanted to add that to the plot. I can change the color of the text so that when I go and I make revision notes or I start writing my second draft, I can like incorporate all of the things in green that I put into my subplot. And then I can also like cross things out. If I wanted to delete scenes, you can like use strike through so you can figure out what you need to delete. And that's a really cool way that I like to structure my revisions, just because it makes everything really easy to conceptualize and see. This isn't letting me unstrike through this cell, but oh yes, it is. Okay. So that's kind of how I approach my revisions. And that's why I find plot grids so helpful, is because you can see everything from this big picture perspective and you can break everything down by all these different individual subplots. People who are underwriters might find this really helpful. Like if you feel that once you have written a completed draft of your story and it's much shorter than you wanted it to be, and maybe things aren't fully fleshed out, if you go and create like a subplot after you've already written your draft, you can see maybe where you have a lot of blank areas in your subplots, and then that can give you ideas for scenes that you can fill in later, and that might help flesh out your book a little more. Yeah, this is kind of my overview of plot grids. Do any of you have any questions about how to create plot grids, what plot grids are, different ways that you're using plot grids for your own stories, anything like that? Because I'm super happy to answer any questions that you have at all. And for all of you who are watching the replay of this, just comment down below if you have any questions about plot grids. I'd love to chat with you about them. But yeah, I can hang out for a couple of minutes if any of you have any questions. Yeah, just let me know. Paul said, I'm definitely going to try this method. Notes on overall plot, world, and character, write a narrative rough draft, plot grid first draft. Yeah, definitely write notes and try to flesh out your ideas before creating a plot grid. I think that would be very helpful. It's kind of tough to go into a plot grid without any idea of how you want to structure your book. Like usually my step one, which I walked through in like the first plot grid video that I did, was just like I open a Word document and I like write down some rough plot points and I just start throwing ideas down on the Word document and then try to shape it into a general structure first. And then I'll like put different plot points into the plot grid and then you can add cells. Like I definitely do some work before creating a plot grid because otherwise this can get pretty overwhelming. And yeah, plot grids for revising are also very helpful. What's also cool, I mean, you know, when you create the grid, you can do it, you know, how we did it in this video, but when you're working on your plot grid, if you wanted to, like, let's say you didn't want this to be the second scene, you wanted this to be the third scene, you can like pretty easily insert, I probably should have prefaced this. I definitely am not an expert in Google Sheets or Excel. I have no technical knowledge of how to, like, this is basically all I know is like you wrap text and you can make colors and strike through and stuff. So I'm not like a tech expert or anything, but you can like add some rows and then you can, you know, maybe make this your new chapter 2 and you can, you know, move things around that way. So that is also helpful. That's why I like Google Sheets. I've started using Google Sheets a little more than Excel. I used to use Excel, but I like Google Sheets. It's easy. Shannon said, this is similar to Plotter, but I like that it uses Sheets. Yeah, I think I've heard of Plotter. I've used the free trial, but like this method really works for me. And Google Sheets is free, so it's easier. And then I don't have to use the software. But if you have Plotter and it works for you, like this is the exact same concept, I think, as Plotter uses. But I only used the free trial once, I think. I was just like playing around with it. And it's free. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I like it. It's accessible, it's easy, it's very user-friendly. I like it just because you can like move things around. I have a lot of admiration for people who can do these by hand with, like, I would go absolutely crazy, I think, if I wrote them all out by hand on like a grid. Oh, also on a whiteboard. You could probably do them on a whiteboard. Whiteboard would be fun, but on paper it would be a little tricky. But yeah, thank you all so much for coming to this stream. I am very grateful that you all took the time to hang out with me tonight. I hope that this was helpful to you. Please don't hesitate to reach out or with any questions that you have about plot grids. I love talking about this method of outlining. It has completely changed the way that I like to plot out my books. Seriously, thank you. I'm very, very grateful that you all took the time to come and listen to me. And yeah, just definitely, I'm very accessible if you have any questions. I want to help you all understand this if it's something that you want to understand and use in your writing process. So thank you. I'm doing another stream. It's a little different than this. I'm doing writing sprints this Saturday, June 4th at 10 a.m. Eastern time. If you want to come do some writing sprints and maybe work on your plot grids, I'm going to be going live with my friend, young adult author Marissa Latte. And I'm very excited about that. So if you are around on Saturday morning, definitely come by for that. Oh, and thank you so much, Paul. That's very nice of you. Yes, I am sorry for the short notice this morning. I realized I'd had this plan to do this stream for a little while and I just forgot to schedule it on StreamYard. But yeah, I'll be better about that next time. And also, if you have any topics, because I want to start doing more of these live in-depth videos on different writing topics. If you have any topics that you want me to do one of these videos on, if it's about character voice or character development or anything like that, please, please, please comment on this video because I am compiling ideas and fleshing out some plans for doing some more of these on different topics. So definitely let me know if there's anything that would be helpful to you. So yeah, thank you all so much. I will see you soon. And as always,